Hey everyone, I know you've seen the title of the video, but I just wanted to say that it was going to be knees in keeping with going up from your toes to your head, but I don't have knee pads. Never had them, and in order to do a lot of the stuff with knees, I would have to do it a lot of times, and I don't want to wreck my knees for like a 10-minute video. So instead of knees, I figured I would try going over a style instead of a body part. This way we can kind of keep the basics videos in two separate categories. I'm gonna talk about sexy stuff today because especially with quarantine measures, a lot of pole studios have a lot of online classes, and the one near me, they never had an exotic class, which I think is odd for like any pole studio. They say it ruins the floors. One of the teachers said, hey, it's online, they're ruining their own floors, can I run an exotic class? And they're more contemporary in style, so it's just kind of at odds with who they are. It doesn't seem as fluid because it's a style that they're not familiar with. For example, when I was growing up, I was a trained dancer. I was really good at tap. Tap was my favorite, but I struggled with ballet. Tap and ballet were, at least at my studio, the styles of dance that were the furthest away from each other. Ballet, you need to be like upright, you know, you have to be like up on your toes at any given moment. And then tap, you should be really like low, like, I don't know, not bouncy, but you have to be really mobile through your knees, so you're down low a lot. So because I was so good at tap, ballet was harder because it was just so different with how my muscles wanted to move. And I think that might be the issue with a lot of teachers teaching exotic. They're so used to doing things for a fitness approach or a contemporary approach that the exotic seems forced. I just wanted to give an example of what I mean by this. This is an example of what choreography can look like from a teacher that's not used to it. Very stiff hand movements, and then you can see with the body wave, there's a clear stop, and exotic is a lot more fluid than that. So I want to give a little example, and you just tell me what seems better and more natural and what you would actually see on stage at a strip club. So there's looking towards the camera, a little bit of posing, and then not stopping that body wave in the middle. So today I wanted to go over things relating to fluidity as well as certain moves and things to keep in mind when you're doing moves that are exotic. Of course, this is all my opinion. You can choose to accept it as fact or not. It's up to you. Like, to me, the people who you should be learning from are people with loads of exotic experience and girls that are strippers or were strippers. You don't know. Strippers. You should learn from strippers. Absolutely. 100%. They know what they're doing. I'm going to link some accounts. Some will be strippers, some will not. I'm not here to out anybody. I don't know what they're doing. So there's going to be a mix of people who are just really good at exotic naturally, and a variety of strippers who are just really good, and you should learn from them because strippers know best what's sexy on stage. And if you're going to be trying to present yourself as a sexy pole dancer, who else are you going to learn from? You know what I'm saying? So the first thing I wanted to talk about was your face. All the sexy movements in the world, your legs can be so long and beautiful, and you could be doing such a sexy movement like up the pole and you could look great, but then if your face is distorted or you look like you're in pain or you're just focusing really hard, that's gonna wreck a lot of your movements. Much like a toe sickling can cut off your line, your face can cut off your performance. So what I mean by that, and you just hit a pose, and if in that pose you're like, people aren't necessarily gonna wanna look at that. Some common face distortions during dances is a lip scrunch, a tongue out, a bite. It could be sideways bite, tongue out, all super common and relatively easy to fix. Now, there's no cut and dry way to fix your face. So things to keep in mind while you're dancing to make sure that you're not doing that is to remind yourself as you're dancing. Like, you might be thinking about point your toes. Oh, you have to do this here. Just periodically throw in, what's my face doing? Check in with yourself. If you're doing a movement that's a little bit difficult, you might find yourself accidentally biting your lip or doing something weird with your face because you're focusing and, you know, you're not thinking about it and your face just does that because that's what it's been doing your whole life. So first we're going to look at an example of if you're in control of your face, what that might look like. You're looking at the camera, you're making movements that match with your face. And then if you're not checking it at all, you're just focusing, it's going to look a little more like this, thinking about, placing your leg instead of what your face is doing. You're not worried about that. Now, if you check in periodically, what that could turn into is this. So you're biting your lip, and then you work it out because you monitored yourself. Another thing you could do to make sure that your face is right is practice. Practice certain things that make you feel good about your body and yourself, things that feel sexy to you. When do you feel sexiest? Something that, for lack of a better phrase, gets your motor running. To be sexy, you have to think sexy. If you're thinking about, oh God, where's my foot going? Your face is it's gonna be a lot harder to do that. In terms of your face, think about what makes you sexy and try to convey that on your face. Practice to songs that make you feel confident. It doesn't matter what they are. You can sell a sexy move with your face, no problem, regardless of what song is playing. You want to be listening to the music, but you also want to really have that in your head to begin with, have a more intrinsic, sexy motivation process. So to start, I'm going to talk about the presentation of moves. So you want to make sure that you look at the camera and accentuate things. It's going to involve like touching your leg, hitting your butt, things like that. And then you're going to want to continuously look at your audience. You can look away because if you just stare at them, it could be a little bit creepy, but you want to make sure that they are looking. Another thing about presenting or posing, you want to make sure that your long leg is the one that is towards the audience. And the fun thing about posing is that it can look really good, but it also gives you breathing room. So just doing something simple like this takes zero effort and it looks really good to the audience. Something that goes hand in hand with presentation is keeping those angles in mind. I talked about it in my heels video, but you want to make sure that you're pushing through your ankle and keeping your leg as straight as possible, or with a bent knee. You want to make sure that you get to that straight point, and if you bend, you really bend. And make sure that your ankles stay strong. To really hammer this thing home, because it's very important, here's a little hip circle with straight legs. Then I'm going to do it with slightly bent legs. And if you do this, it points to imprecision and a sloppiness to your routine that makes people think you're not confident. So if you're not confident in the straight, you have to bend your knees, keeping those ankles engaged as well. Which one looked better, right? And because angles are so important, you want to make sure you're thinking about that all the time. When you're turning to the side, you want to really turn. You don't want to just kind of list over onto a diagonal and go. You want to whip it. Now we're going to talk about fun leg things. What I want to talk about first is the ankle swish. This is kind of what it looks like when your legs are up in the air, and what it functionally is sort of in a controlled manner, taking your ankle from a wing to a sickle. And you can also do it where you're flexing and then pointing. And here's what it looks like from the front on. It kind of does a sweeping motion. Just use this one sparingly because you don't want to rely on a sickle in your foot. Just use it as a flourish when your feet are up in the air and are not coming down soon. When posing, here's some things to keep in mind, because you're going to want to stick your butt out, but you want to make sure that that core stays tucked in. So what this looks like a little bit closer up is if you're doing a presentation and then everything's kind of tooched out and your back's a little crunchy, what you want to make sure is that you can stick your butt out, but still keep in mind that you breathe in and tuck that in a little bit. Another simple, sexy thing you can do with your lower body is a leg wave. So I like it best as an air walk. So it's just like regular walking, your hips are swiveling a little bit from side to side, and it can look really effective. So next thing I wanted to talk about was your hips. You can do simple figure eights and circles, and you can do little poses and just move your butt around, and it's almost always going to look at least halfway decent. So what I wanted to talk about specifically with your hips was how to do the stripper butt shake. So what that involves is some external and internal rotation. So when you're externally rotating, you want to think about tucking that core in and then peeling your hips out and then kind of down the rest of your leg. So you're going to want to feel that pulling through your butt to externally rotate your whole leg.
So sped up, it looks like this, and from a standing position, you can do it as well. So normally people shake their butt, they move from side to side, and the main difference is the rest of your body. So you can see the shoulders kind of move, and then in this, they don't. So you can do that completely upright or bending over a little bit. You can still do the side to side, but it's slower as more of a pose. So moving on to the midsection, I didn't have too much other than making sure that your stomach is tucked in. And I also wanted to talk about some body issues. If you don't like the way your stomach is and it makes you feel insecure, wear high-waisted stuff as much as possible. That'll help. And again, it's going to be tempting to tuck in your stomach a little too much. So I naturally stick out. I look pregnant all the time. So I tuck in a little bit, but I try to only do it while I'm posing. So when you are in a move and you've stopped and you're in it for sure, like when you're bent over, instead of looking pregnant, you can tuck it in to flatten yourself out a little bit. But I want to make sure that everyone knows to only do this sparingly, because if you do it while you are moving a lot, it can interrupt your air intake and it can be kind of dangerous. Next on our sexy journey up the body, I'm going to be talking about our shoulders. So the main thing to keep in mind with this is making sure that they are back and down as much as possible. So if you slouch, this is going to be particularly important. So you want to pull those down, it sticks your chest out, and it keeps the rest of your body in line, which is really important when you want to look good. So another thing that keeping your shoulders engaged will do will make you look more confident. So it can give the appearance that you are more comfortable on the pole as opposed to like this. So what this looks like during an actual movement, I'm just going to demo a spin with proper shoulder engagement. So like this, things are down and you can look at the audience and it's very pretty. And then the same thing, but your shoulders are up. You lose engagement and you look like you're focusing. You don't look at the audience. So you really want to pull through those lats to help out your shoulders. Moving on to arms. So similar thing, that they are going to either be straight or they are going to have a bend in them, except with your arms, there is a level of fluidity you want. You want everything to be connected. So you want to be able to move them as a graceful unit with pretty lines. So there's a little hand flourish that people do, and you want to use it sparingly. You can use it when you're snapping and when you want to drag attention to your hand specifically, but when you're doing it in certain moves, it can drag attention away from the move and into the hand instead. So if you're doing this, it drags attention away from what your leg is doing. So if you do a little like this, that can generally be okay, especially if you're doing a burlesque style number, or if you want to really drag attention to where your hand is going, that's also fine to do that, but remember to use it sparingly. Just as a little reminder, if you're doing things, it takes your hand away from where you are. So this can also mean if you're doing things up the pole and it drags attention there as opposed to you and your face and how beautiful you are, you can use it to highlight things if you're going to be doing something against the pole, but again, sparing. So moving up the body, I already talked about face, so we're going to talk about hair. So generally what this means is hair flipping, and it can look really good. Just make sure that you go towards the direction that your body's going. This is particularly important on spin pole because you could fall off if you're not careful. So another thing I wanted to discuss was troubleshooting a hair flip. So hair can get in your eyes really easily, and it's annoying because you need your eyes to see what you're doing. So you want to fix your hair, but just fixing it might not be cute. It could be a distraction as well. So how to make sure that it's good is being able to play with it a little bit. So you do this, it gets in your eyes, and then you rock with it a little. So what looks better? Do a hair flip, and then, or hair flip, it's in your eyes, but you play with it. Next on the docket is body waves. So this can look really good, and it takes a lot of your body in order to be able to do it. So what you want to do is move that chest forward and then roll the rest of your body up. You can practice against a pole because it helps to really make sure that your body is peeling up it. So in reverse, you can do this as well. So that just requires moving your hips forward first and then peeling up that pole. It should also be noted that you want to do that same motion even if there's not a pole or a wall there to really make sure that you're peeling up or down. So what this looks like when you're facing away from a pole, so you're going to want to make sure that if you're leaning against a pole, your body is apart. So this is what this looks like, and if you're doing multiple ones, you want to make sure that you remain fluid in your movement. You don't want to stop in between. So next I wanted to talk to the instructors and choreographers instead of directly at students. So I want everyone, when they're coming up with pieces, to keep repetition of things in mind, because body waves can look really nice, but if you do them too many times, it's like, what are you doing here? And it can end up removing the sexiness and just looking a little awkward after a period of time. And this is not exclusive to body waves either. Often a lot of leg work and things you do on the floor can be repeated a lot, and I'm sure it's just because, you know, the time was there and you're waiting for a specific move, but it can look awkward and almost uncreative, like you can't think of something else. If you repeatedly do a move for a full 8 counts, it can be a little awkward. But if you're doing this to fill time, what do you do instead? So if you're doing some leg waves, instead you can extend out, getting out of that move, hit a pose maybe, instead of doing that move to the death. So what that can mean is doing a little leg thing for a couple of times and then taking your time getting out of that move.
So that's all I had for this week. So I just wanted to throw in the performance of sexuality is not limited to what I've shown here. This is just what I've been thinking about for the past week, and I wanted to share it with you, and hopefully you got some value out of it, especially when you're starting to move and use heels and figuring that out. If you're scared of heels, please check out my Basics of Heels video. I really like that one. I'm not biased or anything. And I will probably upload another video about sexuality coming up at some point, because there is so much to do with it, and especially as your movement evolves. So maybe in the future I'll post a more advanced one. I don't know. If you have any ideas that you want me to go over, please leave a comment. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe. I will be posting every Tuesday. So thank you to everyone if you have liked this video and subscribed. And if not, tell me why. Please tell me what you would like me to cover, because my main point with this channel is to help everybody grow in their movement together. So what I was thinking for next week, because the knee pads probably won't be in by then, with everything that's going on, you can't guarantee like times for anything. So what I was thinking, I would do another style or a separate body part. So if you have any ideas, please let me know in the comment section, or go to my Instagram, and please check out the Instagram accounts I will have linked below. They are great. They're not all of them are necessarily like resources. I don't think all of them like teach necessarily, but they are really great, and some of them are providing free resources during this time. So please check them out. They are wonderful people. So that's it. See you next week. See you next Tuesday.